Welcome to our Cybersafe Digest Weekly Podcast, Episode 12. Each week, we will unfold the most recent cyber attacks and will provide you with valuable insights on how to shield your business from these threats, along with practical steps and tips to enhance your cybersecurity.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to our Cybersafe Digest, our companion piece to our weekly email, which tells you about threats that are coming from the cybersecurity world. I'm Martin Roberts, Managing Director of Newways, and I'm here with...
I'm Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer here at Newways.
Okay, we're talking about basics here today, Toby, because it'd be a really nice thing to do. Because we are challenged every day now with cyber threats, and we're challenged with, great solutions to deal with those. However, there's some basic things that a business can do, which actually probably get lost in the growth of a business because it's not the most important thing in the world.
No, or it's not the most exciting thing. There's always a race to have more flashy lights or a shinier box.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that is true is about backups. Everyone understands what a backup is, or they think they do, and what it's for. And generally, if you have been graduated like we have through all the stages of computing and of a growing business, it used to be copying your files to a floppy disk, if you remember one of those.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. To backing up to a local machine, to backing up to a server, to backing up. And everyone's talked about backing up. There's this thing, which is a currency, which is disaster recovery. And the one of the older jokes in the IT world is, we've got half of that sorted, the disaster.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to just go on for a few moments, and then we'll talk a bit more about what we can do. My first experience of disaster recovery, or that first part, disaster, was actually, I wasn't in the IT industry. And the story is it would be about 35 years ago. And my father-in-law, who was a coach builder, he sprayed cars. He would fix cars. He would order paint. Somebody would turn up. He'd order paint off them once or twice a week, and he'd pay in cash, or he'd pay in cash the next time the guy came along with his invoice. And one week he turned up and he said, "Hey Norman, have you got your invoices from last week? How much do you owe me?" And we said, "Well, you know how much I owe you." He said, "We don't. Our computer system failed and we can't restore the backup. And so we are going around and asking all our customers how much they owe us." Now, Norman was a very honest chap, and actually it was a lot of money. He said, "I owe you 65 quid or whatever it was," and paid him in cash, as he always did. Not everybody was quite so honest.
No.
And about 3 months later, that business went bust because they couldn't. And it was a real graphic illustration to me about the importance of backup, but actually more importantly of restore.
Definitely, yeah.
And now you and I have witnessed in our own business customers who've had, this is a lovely expression that I know you use, suboptimal backup strategies.
Yeah.
Disaster recovery strategies.
Yeah. Describe
a suboptimal strategy.
Well, it's as you say, backups are a critical aspect of anybody's IT estate because they facilitate restores. Yeah. And there's a saying that we have in the space that is, backups are easy but restores are hard, and that's really true, because actually copying the files to something is relatively easy, but it's only when you come to restore it that you know whether it's any good, and that's the hard part, making sure you're ready to go. And one of the big problems we see, and one of the examples of suboptimal backup might be where it is something that's physically connected to a server. Mm-hmm. So we have historically seen USB drives hanging off the back of servers, invariably changed by an individual within the business.
Yeah.
Instantly, we have two problems there. First is if that individual is not there, the backups don't get changed. Yep. So you're overwriting last night's backup with tonight's backup, ad infinitum until it gets changed. And number two, because it stays permanently connected to the server, if that server has a problem that affects the data storage that is attached to that server, well, the backup drive is also attached to the server, so it's going to have that same problem. And it's not uncommon for people that operate in this way, if they get hit with ransomware on that server, their backups also get encrypted. Now, that may be a side effect. I mean, attackers love to go for backups. That is job number 2 on their attack list. Job number 1 is maintain persistence, be able to get back into the system if they need to. But job number 2 is destroy the backups, because then you take away one of the bargaining chips you have in your ransom demand.
Yeah, and I think it's probably true. About 5 or 6 years ago, we acquired a business, and we had a rash of people phoning us up and saying, hey, we've been ransomware. And we'd say, well, good news is you do backups. And they'd say, yes. We say, could you get the last backup out of the safe? And it'd be, we haven't changed the tape in a while. And, the good news is that we actually recovered everybody one way or another. But sometimes they'd lose days and sometimes weeks worth of data. I guess, we know what a suboptimal backup looks like and a restore. What's the optimal, or shall we say the base optimal setup, which we would recommend these days?
So one of the terms that gets bandied around in the backup and recovery, or what we might call the BCDR space, the business continuity and disaster recovery space, is the magic 3-2-1 rule. And there's variations of that float around, but essentially it's saying you need to have 3 copies of the data, one of them being the live copy and 2 backup copies. They need to be on 2 separate types of system or media device, and one of them needs to be off-site and disconnected. And that really is what a good baseline looks like. That means that if your primary data gets damaged, you've got at least one other source to go to. So if the server goes pop or gets ransomware or crashes or something like that. So we're not only talking about cyber incident, we're talking about any service affecting incident really here. We've got 2 other locations to go and restore that data from. If one of the locations of that data happens to be the same location as the server and the server room's had a fire, then you're reliant on that off-site copy. But that's good because it's off-site and it's unaffected, so the copy of the data exists. It's also really important for that off-site data to be what we call immutable, in as much as it can't be deleted randomly or ad hocly. So immutable storage is normally bound by retention rules. So you say, this backup is going to stay here for 4 weeks and it can't be deleted until 4 weeks is up. Because again, it helps protect against those threat actors, those attackers that want to get onto your system and destroy your backups. If you have an immutable backup, which has got a retention policy on it, that data can't be deleted out of cycle. So they are the things that you need to do and have factored for in a standard baseline. And there isn't really a standard and a premium. There is just what is good practice.
Now, I think one of the things about disaster recovery or business continuity and disaster recovery is that actually, my first exposure to it was really about a genuine disaster. What happens if the building burns down? What if a computer room suddenly catches fire? And we used to talk about the issues with, well, you've got to get another computer to replace that, another server. We've got to build it, which might take just sourcing a server of appropriate spec, and it might be an old server spec anyway, and to restore the data to it could take days, could take weeks.
Yeah, when we used to do an exercise with a number of our customers to try and explain what that lapse time would be.
Yes.
Anyone that's bought a server recently knows it takes a couple of weeks from ordering one to getting it. Then you've got to build it. And suddenly you could be 2 weeks down the line from your disaster. You've not done any IT-related activity, and you've now got to restore back to 2 weeks ago, and hoping that it's all going to work.
And that business continuity piece should also include, and I don't want to go too far into this, is that how actually do you operate in that scenario where you've got no computers?
We have that void of IT,
Absolutely. How do you take orders? How do you dispatch things? And genuinely, you don't. And actually, what's going to happen is you're going to go out of business, sadly. I guess one of the other things that we looked around for the appropriate solutions for our customers, and we're approached all the time. As a business, we've always tried things ourselves. We always eat our own dog food, is the expression.
Customer zero.
Customer zero. And we've been impressed by certain solutions. One particularly, we don't mind talking vendors, is Datto. what I've always liked about that was this opportunity to spin up in the cloud a version of your data and connect to that for a period of time. So that issue with replacing the hardware, sourcing hardware, building it, replacing it, getting it into place. And of course, if your server room had burnt down, all the connections got anyway. This idea that you could connect to this remote device somewhere in the cloud and then run your business within hours was a huge appeal to me. And that's actually, we've witnessed it save some businesses.
Absolutely. I mean, this kind of technology we've been working with this vendor for must be close to 10 years now. And one of the things that we saw prior to working with this vendor is that these technologies were very prevalent in enterprise spaces, but they were horrendously expensive, horrendously complicated, but they satisfied the need of being able to return to service in a relatively short period of time. And this particular solution, and it's not by no means the only one that does this now, but this particular solution was one of the front runners in this space. It's democratized that availability of these rapid recovery solutions. You choose the right hardware, you can spin up on the backup appliance itself. So if your server's gone pop, you don't have to change anything. You just spin it up locally and everyone accesses it in exactly the same way they did before. You lose the site, as you say, you can spin up in the cloud. This is infinitely preferable to having to wait 2 weeks for a server to roll up. I think the other thing that it also discourages, and it's one of my pet hates really, is when people say, oh, we'll use the old server as the standby server. Well, you're getting rid of the old server for a reason. You want to trust your business with that server when you need it the most.
I think what this indicates is thinking about business continuity and disaster recovery. What is it actually? It is actually insurance. You pay for insurance. Now, if you're driving a vehicle on the roads in the UK, you must be insured by law. It's not a choice. If you own a house, it's a choice to have insurance, and generally, if you can afford it, you will have it, I guess, unless you have a high tolerance for risk.
Or an unlimited pocket full of cash.
to replace the whole house or whatever. And I think that's, if you view it as insurance, look, I don't ever want to use business continuity and disaster recovery solution.
No.
I don't ever have to switch it on. I want to know it's there. I want to know that it actually works. I want to test it occasionally. But my goodness, I don't want to use it in anger. But and for that, I'm prepared to pay my insurance. I wouldn't dream for one moment of not insuring my house if I can afford to do it. And no business owner, no business should really consider operating without that insurance policy of a business continuity disaster recovery solution.
Absolutely.
And I think, for the first part, really, you've got to have this if you're a serious business. If you're a serious business because you're investing in IT and you're investing in systems to make your system efficient and to serve your customers well, having a business continuity solution is just standard stuff. It's like having an alarm system on your building. It's like having insurance. It's like having, bizarrely, windows frames in the gaps where the windows sit and having a front door.
Yeah, it's that obvious a thing really that you should have, particularly when you've seen the impact of not having one.
Yeah, absolutely. So do it, because thinking about it later is often too late. And actually, the cost of a good and a reasonable disaster recovery solution these days is really cheap compared to what it used to be 10 years ago.
I thought would be one of the things that anyone that is struggling to see the value in this should do is work out what their cost of doing business is, work out what the cost of trading for every hour is, and then work out how much downtime you can tolerate. Because that should quite easily pay for itself. There's a probability or likelihood factor in there, and you also have to try and work out what is the impact of that loss of trading, the overtime you have to pay, the loss of reputation, expedited shipping or double shifts or whatever it is to catch up. But actually, you can probably just work out from a downtime perspective actually what it looks like, because without it, you can't make that informed decision. It just looks like it's a number and, well, I can pay next to nothing and I'll get a backup. But actually, you need more than a backup. As I said before, the backup bit is easy. It's the restore part that's hard.
Okay, we'll talk about that next time. I think, there are calculators out there. We have one too, which allows you to put in various elements and work out how much that cost, that downtime will be. Because not having a system available means you're doing things manually, as you say, having to then get things back. You've got to do overtime to get all the orders in. And if you're in a business whereby you sell a product which can't be bought anywhere else, well, your customers might well suffer that delay. If you're in a commoditized business where the order comes to you because it's available at that point in time and you offer the best service, you might lose that order, and actually worse than that, you might lose that customer, and that's the slippery slope. Thank you very much for that, Toby. We'll talk next time about the second part of this, which is not the disaster but the recovery, and we'll see you next time, folks.
Thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of episode 12 of our Cybersafe Digest Weekly Podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and to make sure you don't miss out on our future episodes, hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple or Google Podcast. For more cybersecurity wisdom and resources, head over to our website at cybersafe.co.uk. See you next Thursday.